All right, hello everyone. Thanks for signing up. Thanks for attending. Looks like we got a few people on. Hopefully, some more people will join up a little later. Um, just want to introduce myself. I'm Scott Crone. I'm an area sales manager and product manager for AMETEKSTC. My background is in naval nuclear operation, electronics technician, and calibration. I've been in the discipline for nearly 40 years, and the latest 30 years have been with AMETEK, and I'm based out of our Largo, Florida facility. We manufacture deadweight testers, hand pumps, and then our Chatillon and Lloyd measurement um, equipment in that facility. So the agenda today is to run over the XP2i legacy, do some comparisons between the XP2i and the XP3i, talk about the XP3i itself and some of the support software, and our certification and calibration certificates that are associated with the gauge. So as you know, the XP2i is one of the world's most successful digital test gauges. Many industries, not just oil and gas, but several industrial industries, the marine industry, they all consider it a go-to digital gauge. In fact, in a lot of industries, you're going to hear people talk about crystal gauges or saying, I've got a crystal when they're just talking about a digital gauge. So we've got a very good name, very solid brand reputation there. We've delivered thousands of these XP2Is since 2003. It is an industry standard in many segments. There's a lot of these out there, and making the transition to XP3i, we're going to make that as easy as possible. This is loved by companies and end users for a few simple reasons, actually. If you think about it, they're very easy to use. They're extremely durable. They have a reliable performance with trusted results and very useful features. So we don't want to ruin any of that. We want to move it forward. So the XP2i itself is 0.1 of reading accuracy. We have optional S2 and S5, so a 0.05 and 0.02% of scale. It's temperature compensated from -10 to 50 degrees C, which is pretty much the range of workable conditions. Basically from 14 to about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It has logging and good data capacity with a 1 sample per second capability and 32,000 data point capability. It has serial communication, and we do have supporting software and applications. So we've got configuration with Config XP and data logging with Data Logging XP. It's a solid instrument, and it's still going to be a solid instrument going forward. But why do we change? Well, we change because even the best can get better. We come up with new applications, and there's increased competition in this space. So we have to step up our game and bring some new things to the table. So there's availability of new technologies, more efficiency. We can get better performance, maybe even make it a little bit easier to use, add a few features, and take some of that customer feedback on workflows and interactions and throw those capabilities into the gauge. And it's all in an effort to continue to make crystal engineering the #1 digital gauge in the market going forward. So the XP3i, 05% of reading accuracy, and I'll talk about reading and scale in a little bit, but it's twice the accuracy of the XP2i. And then we have the optional S2 and S5 options available. So the 0.05 and 0.02% of full scale are still available. We increased the temperature compensation from -20 to 50, so we took it down to -4. We had some customers in some of the colder climates that asked us to kind of expand that capability. And what temperature compensation means is that our gauges are going to read the stated accuracy regardless of anything within that temperature band. There's many gauges on the market today that they specify an accuracy but not temperature compensated. And outside of a very small band, you have to actually compensate for the readings that you're seeing on the gauge. We added a larger and brighter display. We added faster logging and better logging capacity. So we can now do 5 samples per second. So we're 5 times better. And then we're infinitely better as far as data storage goes. As we're all aware, data storage is so much more efficient now than it used to be. So we can now do greater than 200 million data points versus the 32,000 that the XP2i could do. We added Bluetooth communication and a cloud-based software suite. We also added a mobile application that works with both Android and Apple operating systems. And provided some simple and faster workflows into the gauge. So we're really moving this thing along. And if we take, I don't know how many of you are boxing fans, but boxing world, they talk about tail of the tape when they compare to boxers. So the tail of the tape here is we've got increased accuracy with 0.5 of reading versus 0.1 of reading, increased temperature compensator range where it goes to 10 degrees C lower. So it goes down now to about -4 C. More data, 200 million data points versus 32,000 data points, and convenient data transfer. We have wireless capability now and no cable. And when you do need to use a cable, we got away from the 9-pin RS-232 and went to USB communication. So the communications themselves are in a more convenient format. Plus, it's also with a cable that you can readily find rather than getting the factory OEM RS-232 9-pin cable. It has an improved user interface with a new added settings button, but all the other buttons remain the same. So the transition is going to be pretty easy for you. It's easier to read, has a larger display and a better backlight. You can see in this image that the XP2i has sort of a greenish gray display, where we've got more of a bright white display on the XP3i. And we also took it to an official mil standard drop test. So on a steel plate, we can drop the XP3i from 1.5 meters or 5 feet without a boot, and 3 meters or 10 feet with a boot. So it's extremely durable. But as you'll notice, it looks a lot like the XP2i, again, making that transition easier. So we improved accuracy and stability. So the XP2i, when it came out, set an industry standard for gauge accuracy at 0.1% of reading. At the time, it was one of the very few devices available on the market outside of a deadweight tester that had a specification of reading. Most digital gauges then and still today have an accuracy as a function of scale. The XP2i is also known for fast settling and very stable readings. Again, very reliable, very easy to use. So for the XP3i, we doubled that accuracy. We went to 0.5% of reading. So we even made it better. And it's even faster and more stable. And the increased accuracy is not a result of some firmware tricks or something that we're doing with the way that we average or filter the readings. It is fully improved quality. So that reading is a true reading. It's not something that we're, making through a backdoor or doing something with the firmware. So when we talk about accuracy, we talk about of scale and of reading. So of scale errors are the same error throughout the entire scale of reading. So for a 3000 PSI gauge, which is indicated up here, if you had a function of scale, it would be the same error all the way across. Whereas a function of reading, actually the error gets smaller as you go down in scale. So the magnitude of the error is the same, but the function of the error is actually smaller. So for standard accuracy on the XP3i, it's from 0 to 40% of the range, it's 0.02 full scale. But from 40% to 110%, it's 0.5 of reading. So this is what the XP3i looks like. That's how small the error is in the XP3i. Now we also, again, have the S2 and S5 options. So if we look at this down at the bottom, this is a 0.1% of full scale. So if you look at that graph, that error is the same no matter whether you're at 3000 PSI or at 10 PSI. So at 3000 PSI, 3 PSI error is not a big deal, but at 10 PSI, it's a third of the reading, so it's a huge deal. So when we look at the XP2i accuracy and the XP3i accuracy, they're superior to most gauges on the market today. And you'll notice that error, again, gets smaller, so you have fewer ranges required to achieve your measurement uncertainty ratios. And again, we're temperature compensated from -20 to 50 or -4 to 122 Fahrenheit. So I don't think you want to be working outside in conditions outside of that. Very, very good, very high accuracy instrument. So we prove this to you by giving you an accredited calibration certificate. So it's not just a traceable certificate. It is traceable to a standard, but it's fully accredited per EN ISO IEC 17025. And we're going to give you all your data, your uncertainties, and we show the temperature compensation. So throughout the range of calibration, and it's probably hard to see, but throughout the range of calibration, you can see that we show those readings all the way through the different temperatures. So you've got a level of confidence that this unit is going to perform as expected throughout the temperature range and throughout the pressure range. So we also included a next level integration. So instead of having the software packages that we had before, we have STC Device Agent, which connects the XP3i to Crystal Control Web. So that's installed on your computer. Crystal Control Web is actually accessed through the internet, and it replaces Data Logger XP for data logging and Config XP for gauge configuration. So you can share data, you can share reports, you can configure the gauge, you can look at your data runs, and a few other features. And then Crystal Connect is your mobile application on your phone, and it's available on a Android platform or an Apple operating system platform. And it's wireless retrieval of log data or live readings. So even if you don't have data logging on the device, you can actually access it with your phone and look at the live reading. And I'll hit a little bit more detail on those later. So there's no thick user manuals, much like the XP2i. It's easy and straightforward. The XP2i had your 4 buttons right here, along with your light. So on the XP3i, basically the same. You've got 3 buttons here, along with a configure button for settings, and then your light. So we have the added convenience of that settings key that turns on the gauge settings, and you can make some changes, and it also toggles the Bluetooth on and off. So this makes it really easy as an XP2i user to step into the XP3i. And if you're not an XP2i user and you're stepping right into the XP3i, there's no menus, no manual, no problem. You're going to be able to understand every function only a few minutes after opening the box. Very, very easy to use. It's a great user interface. And again, stepping from one to the other, you don't have any training downtime. You're stepping right from basically one interface to the other interface with a few added features. So the difference in the displays, though, as I kind of pointed out earlier, you've got a highly visible LCD in the XP2i. Still a great display. Large digits, same icons, single level backlight. So that's single level backlight with a dual display option. And we've got similar in the XP3i. We've got the high contrast LCD, which even has a better contrast now. Larger digits. It's got a 2-level backlight, same icons, but lower power consumption, and we still have the dual display option. So the nice part about all this is if we start looking at the actual sizes on the display, for a single line, they're pretty similar, right? You just slightly larger for the XP3i, so 0.68 inches versus 0.66, or 17 millimeters versus 16.9. So virtually the same. For the dual line, though, you're considerably larger on the XP3i. You've got 0.67 inches versus 0.54 inches on the main display, and 16.8 millimeters versus 13.9 millimeters. And the second line digits are bigger as well by 25%. You've got 0.28 inches versus 0.21 inches. So as you can see here, the second line is much easier to see versus this line. And it's a little bit crisper, a lot easier to see what you're doing. So then from a safety perspective, though, it always shows live pressure. So even on the secondary display, you're going to be able to toggle between peaks, high and low, averaging, showing a tare value, which is the constant value subtracted from the true pressure, or a rate of change. So we've got the rate of change, PSI per minute. Down here, it can be changed to whatever units you're using. So if you have a dual line display, it is very safe, very informative. It's great if you're looking for peaks, but looking to see pressure at all the same time, because you don't have to toggle through those different values. It's right there available for you. And it's approved to the latest IS rating, so all zones. So many of you are going to be familiar with the CSA zone, so it's intrinsically safe hazardous locations. You're talking about Class 1, Div 1, so you're talking about right down in here, in this area. Groups A, B, C, and D, temperature code T3C or T4, T3C. For ATEX, you're talking about different groups, so you've got Zone 1 and Zone 2 for ATEX, and you're in the Zone 1 area for ATEX. So this information is on our data sheet. It's on our spec sheet. It's also our product certifications are on the website as well. And this is with or without the boot on the XP3i. So the XP2i was only without the boot. The XP3i, it is with the boot. And we took it to a next level as far as the certification of the housing itself. So the unit is not just IP67, it's IP66 and 67 approved. So it's submersible down to a meter for up to 40 minutes, and it will still read accurately. The rating also includes dust ingress, so it's not going to get dirty inside of the enclosure. You're going to have continued good operation. We did the mill standard drop test on a steel plate. Again, it was 5 feet without the boot, 10 feet with the boot. And we did shock and vibration tests. So we've got 15 Gs for 11 milliseconds, which is an IEC standard, and sinusoidal vibration of 50 meters per second squared at 10 to 500 hertz, which is another IEC vibration test. So it's really, really durable, not going to let you down if you're in a vibrating or in a drop zone. Uses three AA batteries, three AA batteries, and the typical battery life is 1 year. So with that better display, less power consumption, you're going to have less battery use. But the one thing you need to be very conscious of is that the approval for intrinsic safety is only available when you're using the batteries that are specified for the unit. So you can find that information on the back plate of the unit itself. You can find it in the manual and on the data sheet. It will tell you what batteries are approved for use for this in controlled areas. And then the connection for data is a USB Type-C. Now that USB Type-C connection will power the gauge, but it's not IS rated when it's on USB power. So be careful and be mindful of that. The connector is IP67 specified, and it's a mud and dirt protector is provided to you standard. So that's all a part of what you get when you buy the gauge. And then speaking of that USB Type-C, it's an improvement over that 9-pin. We don't have a special cable. There's no drivers required. You can get that cable basically anywhere. I would recommend that you get a decent quality one, but it's available anywhere, and you probably just have one hanging out right in your house right now. The connector is IP67 specified, and mud and dirt protector is provided as standard. The wireless is low energy and it's version 5.4. So it's superior to the 4.0 version, and it is backward compatible. So it's rated for up to 30 meters or 100-foot range. And if you'll notice, that is directional. So this is the back of the gauge. So for the back of the gauge, it's not going to go quite as far, but facing the gauge, you have that entire area of the 100-foot range. And it will shut off after 30 seconds without connectivity. So if you walk away from the gauge and you decide I'm done, drop the phone in your pocket and walk away, once you disconnect, it'll give it 30 seconds and then it will shut that down. So it doesn't continue to drain your battery. It's sort of, it's very similar to the auto off function that we've got for the backlight. Again, it won't drain your battery without the necessary use. So the communication triangle, I mentioned it before. You've got STC device agent on the computer. You've got Crystal Control Web on the internet, which has Data Logger XP and Config XP for gauge configuration. So you can share data, reports, and much more. And then it's got Crystal Connect for the mobile application on your phone. And I'll hit a few of those details in the following slides. So if we talk about the device manager, so device manager is the one piece of software you've got to install on your computer, and it requires the capture of the gauge to connect it to Crystal Control Web. So you download STC Device Manager. You can look at your settings on your gauge. You can view it. It'll tell you if you need a firmware update. It'll give you any trouble logs for any issues you might be experiencing, and it shows all the data runs for that particular gauge. Now, the cool thing is for that, you can export those files, but unlike the XP2i, we can actually delete individual log runs, whereas the XP2i is all or nothing. So again, this is the only piece of software you got to actually put on your computer. Once you have that and you capture your gauge, then you can step up to Crystal Control Web. And this is really the meat and potatoes of the gauge interactivity here, where you can use a web-based application to access it anywhere. Anything that has access to the internet, you can log on to Crystal Control Web. It has an organizational structure, so you can actually set up your organization with all the gauges. You might have teams that are using a certain gauge or users that have certain gauges, and you can invite them to be a part of the group. You can get all of their gauges in the group. And then for utilities, you can store and manage log files. So you've got all these log files. You can configure your gauges. So once a gauge is connected, and you'll see it by the green up here, and it will also indicate green on the list, you can go ahead and configure your gauge. So this is where you would do what units you've got enabled, what the auto off is, what the cal do, or what the calibration do alerts are, what firmware version we've got in there. Any of the setups like auto on for the backlight, that's all going to be here. You can also share reports and you can export reports. You can view all gauges within the organization. You can see which ones are online and which ones are offline. So if you have a bunch of them logged on to the Crystal Control Web, you'll be able to see that. And it, again, does require STC device agent. Very, very useful tool, very powerful. And then the new part, the ultra new part, are applications. So this, again, is available on Apple operating systems. It's also available on the Android operating systems. And it's wireless communication. So you can view your measurements. You can view your data runs. You can set up a data run. You can send a data run, or you can send a live screenshot. You can send that through a message or an email. You can view graphs. You can actually use the same utilities if you're familiar with the Envision, same utilities there. You can go in or out, up, down. You can look at specific points. And then here's what your live data would look like, where you're looking at your live data and you're looking at your peaks and your live data. There's the gauge that's connected. Now, the one thing I will say is to get data, you can always get a live reading once you connect with Bluetooth. But to get data, you do need the data logging option. Now, the data logging option is available at the time of purchase of the gauge. If you're not sure, you can actually purchase it later, either online or through a distributor. So that's the real neat feature that we've got now. And one thing that we've done is the architecture that we're using for the app has allowed us to add features. So continue to provide us with feedback on some things that you'd like to see the gauge do. Once that comes in, we can pass it along to our engineering team, and they can evaluate it to add it to the capability of the applications. And then the last part of this is that, like our other pressure calibrators and gauges, we like to offer a kit for you. And that makes it a one-stop solution for everything you need with the indicator or gauge and a case for all the components. So we do all the hard thinking. We put everything together to get you through the device, get it connected, give you a pressure source, and all you've got to do is connect to whatever you're working with. So it's going to have a gauge, a pump. We've got CPF fittings and hose in there. So those are fittings that connect with our devices and connect with our pumps that are no tools, no tape, up to 10,000 PSI. We'll give you some extra seals in there, applicable media depending on how you order the system kit, and then a case for all components. And we have those systems available from vacuum to 15,000 PSI and in handheld or benchtop pumps. So very versatile, but it also makes it extremely easy for you to accomplish a task because you only need one item and it's going to have everything in there that you need. There's also some additional storage space in the cases for individual things like that are user dependent. So always give that some consideration for what you're doing, and allow us to make it easy for you. And that's pretty much it wrapped up. Are there any questions?
In here for a second. Thank you, Scott, for the nice comparison with the XP2i to the XP3i. This is actually the first of a few webinars that Scott's going to be conducting. As he touched on briefly there, there's a whole software suite that has a boatload of features that we'll go through at a higher detail. And so to get on that webinar, if you're not already on our mailing list, you can add yourself to that from our website or just contact one of us and we'll do that for you. So as far as the questions go, your mics are muted. So go ahead and type a question into the chat and we'll read it off to Scott and get that answered. We got the first one here, Scott. Can you view live data from Crystal Control Web, or is it only available through the mobile app?
That's going to be through the mobile app. You'll be able to see the gauge and see data logs, but you won't be able to see live data. So it's only through the app. And I apologize, everyone. Sean mentioned it. I didn't. We're recording the presentation. So once we're finished with the session, all of you that are registered will get an email with a point of access to get this presentation. And you can feel free to share this with any of your colleagues.
As well. Scott, couple of questions are coming through now. What's the price differential for the XP2i and the XP3i?
They're very comparable. They're a few percentage points apart, and we've made it that way to make it easy for a customer to make that transition from one to the other.
Great. Second one here. Is there a charge for the software?
No, there is no. It's very much like our prior instruments across the board. The software configuration and data logging software comes with no charge. There is a charge for the data logging option, just like there is for the XP2i, and you would need to have that option enabled on your device. And there's a couple of ways to do that. You can order it enabled. You can go back to the distributor and order it from them, and they can get it enabled for you. Or through the application, you can go in and get it enabled.
Perfect. Another one here. Did you say that you can read data remotely? And a second part to that question, and then send that data to others remotely?
Yeah. So if you're on the app using the Bluetooth connection, you can actually send data directly from the app to a text message to it or to an email address. Or you can send it to yourself. If you're getting a reading and you want to save that reading, you can send that to yourself. Now, if you're using the app, you're going to see live data. The only way to see data over time is to have the data logging option. So you do have to have that option to send all those data points. Otherwise, you could just send a live reading if you needed to. You can also take a snapshot of your screen, and it will have all that information on there.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll add one more thing to that as well. If you've downloaded the data onto your phone remotely through Crystal Control Web, you can then upload that data and then have full access as if you had connected via a cable.
Yeah, that's a good point as well.